Hi, so insofar as you were expecting anything, this is going to be a bit different. I'm here with my vacuum cleaner. Say hello.
English.
Right. I kind of hacked this vacuum cleaner a while back for honestly no solid reason that I can discern, and I never did a proper walkthrough of how to do it, so this is that. Now, the first thing you're going to need is something like an Arduino. I used a Raspberry Pi because they're tiny and cheap, and I already know how to use them, so that goes on there. The next thing you'll need is a power supply. Now, Roomba's battery is great for this. I'm going to turn that off. But it runs at about 20 volts, which is enough to fry a Raspberry Pi, it turns out. So you're going to need to step that down. So the first thing I tried was one of these. This is a linear voltage regulator, and basically what it does is to massively increase its own resistance until there's enough volts being dropped across here that your Raspberry Pi is getting 5 volts exactly. Problem with that is that obviously dropping all that voltage makes it very, very hot because the energy has to go somewhere. So I've screwed this heatsink onto it, and what that does is allow it to run for about half an hour before this overheats and the circuit is broken and everything turns off. So don't get one of these, they're rubbish. Get one of these. This is a switching voltage regulator, and I presume that it turns itself on and off somehow, but more or less what it does is it drops a voltage without getting super hot. So that goes in our breadboard. Basically, I just got one of these totally standard breadboards and I just took the backing off and stuck it right on there. The Roomba used to have a cover on it, but I took that off long ago and I lost it. It's around here somewhere, we might never know. One day I'll move flat and it'll turn up. That's why there's this piece of tape on here. It's just to stop dust getting in the vacuum cleaner, because that would be a disaster, clearly. So the first thing we need to do is connect this voltage regulator to the Roomba's battery, and the way we do that is to use a serial port, which is just here. Now, I don't have anything that will plug into this, but fortunately you can just about fudge it using these noodle wires. The voltage out pin on the Roomba's battery is either of these two here. And that goes to this pin here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a couple of capacitors on here because it's just good practice. And all that does is make sure that if the voltage changes suddenly, say because the power cuts out, everything is kind of buffered and doesn't overload. Next I'm going to connect ground. I should have a shorter ground cable than that. And the cables are all the same, but if you colour them it's easier. There's actually 2 ground pins, but I'm using this one. And that connects to ground just there. The next thing to do is connect our cables. So that should be ground and that should be live. So hopefully, I'll turn that round there in case you can see it. I have no idea. My GoPro isn't good enough. And I'm going to just touch these 2 contacts and it should come out at 5 volts. 4.96, that's good enough for me. Brilliant. So, time to connect up the Raspberry Pi and see if it's worked. So I've built this. This is just a USB cable, which I have hacked to bits and put these connectors on the end. Now you can power a Raspberry Pi directly through the GPIO pins, but it's generally agreed to be a bad idea. This one is power. And hopefully, I put this in here, and this in here. That Pi's lit up. This is superb. Let's see if I can connect to it. The Pi has already been taught about my Wi-Fi network. Should be able to log in using SSH. And it has worked. I'm now connected to this Raspberry Pi through this computer using SSH. So now that the Pi is powered, the next thing we want to do is connect it using data to Roomba, because otherwise this is just a computer on a vacuum cleaner not really doing anything of any use. Spoiler alert, it isn't our stage going to do anything of any use. Now the Roomba has got logic pins in the serial port here, and the Pi has got logic pins along the side here. Unfortunately, they run at different voltages. These run at 3.3 volts and these run at 5. So I've got this. This steps the voltage back up again to something that the Roomba will understand. So that goes in here. Now this needs powering as well. This is powered at two voltages, one be low voltage we're stepping up to, and one below the high voltage we're stepping up from, and both of them have a ground pin as well. Okay, so let's connect up. That's no use. Okay, I believe I have run out of appropriately coloured wires, so we're just going to go with anything from here on. First, I'm going to connect up the ground pins, which is this one and this one, and I'm going to connect them both to ground over here. If I can get any more wires in here. Next, I need to connect up a 5-volt cable to here, and a 5-volt power line. There we go. So that is now powered on the high side, it just needs to be powered on the low side now, and for that I need to connect it to the Raspberry Pi, because the Raspberry Pi gives us a 3-volt power pin. I recommend pinout.xyz is a brilliant website for handling this kind of thing. That connects to there, and that should give us a step down for the voltage. Next thing we need is to connect up some data pins. So pins 14 and 15 are by convention receive and transmit on the Raspberry Pi. So let's go for those. Pin 14 is the 4th one along, that goes here, and that runs through one side, it doesn't matter which, of our connector here, and then another wire on the other side connects to the Roomba, and the Roomba has a receive port there, like that. Now the last thing we need to do is exactly the same thing on the other side. We need to take a wire from pin 15, which is the pin just next to 14, which might sound obvious, but they're less sensibly arranged than you might expect. Connect that up to the low voltage. This connector actually works both ways. If you put a low voltage in one side, you'll get a high voltage out the other, but you can put a high voltage in this side and get a low voltage out this side. So it does work for both transmit and receive, which is nice. And so next we need to connect the other side of this around here to the equivalent port on the Roomba, which is here. These pins are very not designed for doing this, so you have to be quite careful, or better still, buy one of the actual plugs and solder everything on, but I tried that, it did not work. You might have more luck. So now this should all be connected up properly, and I should be able to SSH into the Pi and actually manipulate the vacuum cleaner. So let's give that a try. Yeah, I was actually connected to that Pi over there earlier, but this one still works, it's all good. Okay, so now the Pi should be connected, this isn't tested yet, to the Roomba, and the Pi should be connected to my Wi-Fi. What I've done is I've set up a tiny little web server on here so that I can send commands from my computer to the Pi without using SSH. It will relay them to the vacuum cleaner if I've wired everything up correctly. What does a flashing light mean? Okay. That's right. One of the things I learned while doing this is that if you are trying to talk to a Roomba, when you turn it on, it will not be happy. Right, so it's ready now. Okay, it seems to be working. The light's gone red. I make the light go red just to show that it's working because a blood red light is not something that ever appears in normal Roomba operations. Now I should be able to start this cleaning the floor using my computer. Okay, that's enough of that. Because when I bought this Roomba, it's like the cheapest model you can get, because I figured it's a robot that does the vacuuming. What could possibly be the luxury model of that? It cannot be necessary. It turns out that the luxury model has like timers and automation, and it connects to Alexa and all the rest. I haven't got an Alexa, but I have got a Google Home. I'm going to put this very fitting mustache on. Now, what I want to be able to do is just tell Google to clean the floor and have it work. And it can't do that because Google runs through the internet. So if I connect this up to the internet, I can go to if this then that and set up a rule so that if I say, okay Google, clean the floor, it should.
Sure thing.
Now the problem with this is, it's very, okay Google, okay, stop, don't forget it.
I guess not.
Now I think this is a really fun hack. I can control my Roomba from my phone, from my computer, or from my Google Home. And that is nearly everything I want. But this end is a web browser. And web browsers can do a lot more than just click a button, send a signal. Web browsers now have a gamepad API. So this is just a standard knockoff Xbox PlayStation controller. And if I plug it into my computer, my web browser should detect it automatically. Yep, that seems to have connected. This is so much fun. Let me just move all this stuff out of the way because it's a hungry boy. Plus, I should be able to use the vacuum and the brushes. I don't know if you can see that. Hang on, let me get in position. This is the brush just here. And also, that's the big whirly brushes underneath, which normally is paired with a vacuum. Like so. Okay, this way. Now, I realise at this point that what I've done is I've bought the one kind of vacuum that I don't have to operate manually and retrofit it so that I do have to operate it manually. And I have no regrets at all. This was a very useful way to spend an entire month. Because there's one more thing that I wanted to be able to do with this, because another thing that web browsers can do is transmit and receive video. And the Raspberry Pi comes with, if you pay a bit extra, this little camera just here. So if I connect this up, which is not easy. So now I've got the camera on the back. My laptop is showing me a Roomba's eye view of what's around. And the reason I wanted to do that is this is now a smart device. It's connected to my phone, it's connected to Google Home, it's a smart device. So the obvious question is, can it run Doom? And I mean, obviously this computer can run Doom because it's just a tiny Linux box, but what I wanted to do was run Doom as the Roomba. So this is the web page being served by this computer. And if I hit start, that's me. So now I can drive around without looking at the Roomba. I can do it just by reference to the screen, just about. It's not the most responsive controls in the world because it's obviously streaming live video. This is Stadia, this is the future. And I've even got a melee weapon on the back, just here. And I've even got a gun. Because it wouldn't be Doom without a gun, would it? If I press air, the vacuum turns on. And when the vacuum is on, air is pulled up through the middle and it's blasted out of the vent at the back, which is why this whole time I've had the Roomba mounted backwards with the camera pointing away and this stick controls it in reverse. It's because this is the gun. All I need to do is have enemies that are light enough that they can be knocked down by this blast of air. So I've created one of these little guys, one of these, and one of these demon things. I can line it up. And shoot! How good is that? This, incidentally, is a classic Doom graphics technique called scaled sprites. As much fun as this is on the table, I've set up a proper Doom run on the floor over there, so I'm just going to let that play out. Enjoy Doomba. This is going to be a little bit different. A while back I hacked my Roomba a bit, so I thought I would show you how that works. I'm going to need a Roomba.